Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to the inaugural edition of In the Prog Seat, brand new, for now, bi-weekly show here on the channel, all about progressive rock and progressive metal. That's all we're going to cover on here. It's going to be a panel show of revolving guests each time we have a new episode. So today we've got in the house, we've got Chuck Alvarez. Everybody wave so they know who you are. We got Anthony Ferraro. We haven't seen in a while. What's up, Anthony? And we got George Lamie. Once again, George, what's happening? Thanks, guys, for joining. Good to have the three of you on here with me on this first episode. Pretty excited about it. So we got a fun topic today. So it's all about concept albums. And we all know if you dig prog rock and prog metal, concept albums are all the rage going back to the 70s, and they're still doing them today. And there's so many of them, whether they're single albums or double albums. Lots to choose from. So I've asked the guys to pick at least 5, between 3 and 5. We'll see how many we get to of their absolute favorites and why, and maybe give a little reason why they dig these so much. So Chuck, I'm going to have you kick us off with your first choice of the day.
Oh man. Well, thanks again, Pete. My first one, I doubt that most people will think of this as a concept album, but it is a concept album in that they have spoken about, at least the band has. My first pick is Camel's Moon Madness. The concept itself is is in regards to the personalities of the 4 members at the time. If anyone doesn't remember, knows anything about this album right here was the last album to feature the initial quartet that was there. And this album right here basically is probably one of their best albums that they ever produced. Moon Madness, 1976, features 3 of my favorite songs from Camel, which are Songs Within a Song, Another Night, and Lunar Sea, the great instrumental. That's their concept. It's based on each member's personality. If I'm not mistaken, Articulus is Ridiculous, forgive me. That's actually a song written for, which I think that's the song that's written for, which I'm trying to remember which are each one. Lunar Sea is Andy Latimer. Airborne is Peter Barden's. Another Night is Doug Ferguson's. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Song Within a Song is the late Peter Barden's. So that's based on their personalities right there. So that's my first pick, Camel's Moon Madness. 1976.
Great album.
The opening keyboard part in Lunar Sea is pretty prog.
Oh, it's killer.
Yeah, that's a great album. I love those early Camel albums. They're hard to beat. Good choice. Good choice. And not the obvious choice.
No.
As we may hear later on.
I thought that you were going to go a little, I knew you'd pick something for the UK, but I thought you were going to do something else. Maybe that's later on.
Well, Anthony, you're up next. So what do you got for us here?
All right. I got Radio Chaos, Roger Waters, 1987. Basically a concept album written about a disabled and mental challenged individual who's was living with his brother, and his brother got in trouble for a murder, and he had to go live with his uncle. And basically the concept is about Billy having a conversation about his world with a fictitious DJ named Dave at a fictitious radio station, Radio Chaos. And that takes you through the whole, the whole album. It takes you through from each call and talking to the DJ, and then they play songs. It's a cool concept. Everything with Roger is a concept pretty much.
I was just going to say that. I mean, the guy knows how to do a concept album, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely no stranger.
And, looking back on this, it's very, very 80s sounding, but at the time it sounded perfect. And I love it. It's one of my favorites.
It's a great album.
What was it? The Radio Waves, The Powers That Be, Who Needs Information, all stellar tunes. So Roger Waters, Radio Chaos, 1987 is my first concept choice.
There you go.
Excellent.
Everybody's going outside the box here. I love it. All right, George, what do you got?
All right, number 5. There you go.
Here we go.
Great album.
Pain of Salvation, 1 Hour by the Concrete Lake. Basically, it's a story of a Russian or a guy that works in the nuclear arms industry starts to feel guilty about his part and the way things have gone with that. He quits, he takes off, he goes on a trip and starts visiting all these world sites where being part of the machine has affected life. He ends up at a lake in Russia that has been a nuclear dumping ground. It's so toxic that even after they concrete over it, if you're just on it for an hour, you get enough radiation sickness to die in 2 weeks. And it all hits him at once. Like, yeah, he's too small to change anything, but he's not going to be a part of it anymore. And musically, it's probably their most normal album, I would say, most standard prog. They have another concept album, Remedy Lane, that I would say competes with this, but this is where I came in with them, so this is what I would go with.
That was my first album from the band too.
Same here. Excellent album.
Yeah, they got a lot of really good ones, and they're also no strangers to concept albums, right? Quite a few of them. Good choice. All right, I'm gonna go with. I had to pick this one because it's probably set the benchmark for a lot of bands going forward. Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
Yes.
Right? Yes. I mean, huge seller, and this kind of proved that a metal band with prog leanings could make the big time with a storyline this complex, right? It's all about the drug addict, right, who kind of becomes part of this whole revolutionary group to kind of deal with and overtake all the corruption in the government with different politicians and leaders and all that kind of stuff. And there's all these different characters. It's just as much a concept album as it is a rock opera. It's got some, unbelievable songs. A lot of times when I talk about concept albums, I always say it's hard to kind of pull out songs from these albums because you kind of tend to take this whole album or these albums as a whole. But I mean, you got Eyes of a Stranger on here. You got the title track, Revolution Calling. I mean, so many, Sweet Sister Mary, The Needle Eyes, so many like great tracks within this whole concept. And it's expertly produced. The vocals by Jeff Tate are amazing. The guitars, the whole thing is just perfectly done. And weirdly enough, in my opinion anyway, their big concept album is the greatest thing they ever did. So
great album.
Pete, did you see the tour, Pete?
I did not.
You did not.
I did.
Different band when DeGarmo left.
I saw them before and I saw them after. I never caught them. Before. You know what it is? When they put this album out, this was what year again?
89?
88 or 89. So I was graduating college, just out of college, doing an internship, working. In 89, I wasn't going to see many shows. But yet a year later, I was, done with the internship and, working in New York City and all that kind of stuff. And I saw everything. So like there was like that year gap where I missed a lot of stuff. But I saw them on the Empire tour, I think twice. I saw them on Promise.
I saw them on the Empire as well. They were excellent on the Empire.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they were headlining huge arenas on that tour, right? And then before that, I saw them open up for everybody. So, yeah, great band. Great band. All right, Chuck.
Different band without DeGarmo.
Yeah, but very much so.
But you know what? The current band is great. I mean, they're writing stuff that's so in line with the old stuff. And I love the new current lineup. So, but yeah, DeGarmo's missed. Obviously a great songwriter, right?
All right. My second pick is Jethro Tull's A Passion Play.
Oh.
I know it's usually an album that many people don't think too highly of.
Oh, come on.
Especially when it comes to the spectacle version. But, it's still part of the actual concept of this album about a man by the name of Ronnie Pilgrim who sees himself die and ascends up to heaven, but then he finds out that he's not happy being in heaven, so he asks to go to hell. And that's the whole story behind A Passion Play. Great album. One of my favorite albums of all time.
I love it. So I have a question for you. So is everybody a fan of this album?
I actually like the original recording that they released on the.
Well, that was my question. I was going to say, do you guys like the Chateau Disaster tapes? Because I
think the Chateau Disaster tapes is better.
I think the original album, as they envisioned it, is even better.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's how strong that material was. And it's really, I think it's a really interesting time in the career of Jethro Tull, because I mean, here they went to the studio in France, they put together this whole album, which is pretty rocking and heavy and very complex and everything like that. But Ian didn't like it. They didn't like the sound of it. So they kind of scrapped it all. And they took lots of pieces from what they originally did. Much of it became Passion Play, which is great. Much of it became War Child. It's like, it's weird how they took those original sessions and kind of split everything up, and they got 2 albums out of it, basically. And in my opinion, the original incarnation of that album is amazing.
Oh, it really is just a smoking album, but I love this album.
I do too. I like the sax on it. I like, it's, what it is. I think that album went over a lot of people's heads. It takes like Thick as a Brick, and it's even more out there than that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
No.
Good choice. Again, more out of the box stuff. I love it. Anthony, what do you got?
All right. My number 2 pick for a concept record. A lot of prog nerds out there will enjoy this one. I'm going to go with John Anderson's Elias of Sunhillow from 1976.
Yes.
Basically, it's a concept about a bunch of tribes who have to leave their planet of Sunhillow because of a volcanic eruption. And what they get on a ship called the Morglade, and the Morglade was inspired from the Yes Fragile album, and that's where John Anderson kind of got the inspiration for this cover. It's close. At first I thought it was almost the same picture, but you can see it's a little bit different. But that's where he got the inspiration for it. So this is John's first solo album. I just saw John do his 1,000 Hands tour two years ago now. I saw him twice, and he played 5 tracks off of this, and it was magical, absolutely magical. The one track on here, Solid Space, which is a vocal tune but has great instrumentation, was segued in from Starship Trooper, and it was just, what a way to end the show. It was unbelievable.
Still has
so that's what I'm going to go with is John Anderson, Elias of Sunhillow, 1976.
Right. Excellent
really cool album. It's just ethereal, and it's amazing how he played like all the instruments.
Yeah, he played all the instruments and produced it.
It's nothing like, like Yes, but it's just this kind of like floating, lovely kind of magical album that is
a lot of Middle Eastern influences in it too.
Big time. Yeah. Cool pick. George, what do you got? Oh, awesome.
Pleasant Shade of Gray.
Yeah, Pleasant Shade of Gray, Fate's Warning.
Excellent album. Mm-hmm.
One song, 54-minute long song.
Oh, that's a great album.
Yeah. Whereas my first pick, I think the lyrical concept was strong, and maybe musically doesn't hang together as well. This is the opposite. For me, the lyrics are kind of vague. It's about regret in a general sense, but there's not a lot of details to it. But musically, this is really connected. I mean, you couldn't split this up and play just individual tracks. It would make no sense to me.
Right. Yeah.
There's a strong sense of melancholy about it all. It's a great rainy day album, I would say. But that to me makes it unique in metal. There's not a lot of that emotion being expressed. So Pleasant Shade of Gray.
Yeah, and I will say when that came out, we weren't getting a lot of those kind of long form concept albums for a bit. And then all of a sudden that came out. It's like, wow, that was almost like a throwback to the 70s. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And then since then we've seen a lot of that sort of thing, which is good. So you have to wonder like how much Fate's Warning kind of inspired the return to that style of concept album. Because I mean, you think of bands like Seventh Wonder and Pain of Salvation. I mean, all that stuff kind of came pretty much after that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. I totally forgot about that one. I love that album.
Same here. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. All right. How about a concept album about a guy named Torch?
Torch. Oh, yes.
Clutching at Straws by Marillion, right?
Yes.
It's a guy named Torch, but quite frankly, it's probably all about a guy named Derek Dick, otherwise known as Mr. Fesh. This is all about a guy named Torch who's kind of washed up alcoholic has-been singer who's down on his luck, and marriage is in shambles, making no money, life is a mess, all that sort of thing. You know, a little bit autobiographical, right? Considering that Fish was to leave the band shortly after this because he was not very happy with life as a rock star, even though I always say you look at everything leading up to this and Fish seemed to love being a rock star and hobnobbing with Queen and all these big bands and doing the tours. But I guess deep down inside, he was having a little reservations about it. So a great album, my favorite Marillion album of all time. I love this to death. I think it flows really nicely. Most of the songs kind of segue into each other. Hotel Hobbies, Warm Wet Circles, love those two immensely. White Russian is great, Incommunicado, of course, Slanche Math, Sugar Mice. I mean, who doesn't get emotional listening to Sugar Mice, right? Just one great track after another. I think this is his best vocal performance ever. And it's just such a heart-wrenching, it's not a happy album. You know, it's funny, like Incommunicado is like the only like really upbeat happy tune. The rest of it is just like, you know, that's what makes it so good, right? That's my choice. Clutching at Straws by Marillion.
Excellent choice. All right, well, number 3 on my list right now is the Mercurial IQ and their Subterranea album. If anyone has ever heard this album, it's one of these albums that's always been compared to Genesis's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. It's about a gentleman on here that's actually going through an experiment. And as he finds out that he's being experimented on, he's trying to escape from the laboratory that's experimenting on him. It's one of the craziest stories, but musically and lyrically, it does hold up very well if you've ever heard it before. Once again, IQ Subterranea.
That is a great album.
It's a fantastic album.
Yeah. They've got a couple really good concept albums. What's the, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but what's the later one that came with the serial killer that the whole concept
the
is told?
Seventh House? No, not the Seventh House.
Shortly after that, I'm drawing a complete blank.
Your favorite crazy.
Let me check and see. I think.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, that's a good one too. They've got a couple of them that are really, really good. So that Subterranean is awesome. Totally awesome. All right, Anthony, back to you.
All right, my number 3 concept record, which I saw this musician twice on the tour. Stephen Wilson, Hand Cannot Erase from 2015. A story about a popular female who had family, who had friends, and they find her dead in her apartment building 3 years later, and nobody seems to know why. Nobody missed her for 3 years. And the whole concept goes from beginning of her life to kind of the end. And there's some depressing songs like 3 Years Older and Routine, basically what she would go about her day, just like a typical homemaker. Saw him twice on the tour, amazing. So I'm Stephen Wilson, Hand Cannot Erase, 2015.
Very cool. That's a nice size there. Like a coffee.
Typical Stephen Wilson audiobook.
Knock someone over the head with that. Knock them out, huh? Jesus. All right, George, what do you got next?
All right. My number 3. Symphony X. Do you say it V or do you say it 5? I don't know.
I've said both. I don't know what the hell the right answer is.
Based on Atlantis.
I take turns saying it. I don't know what it is.
City of Atlantis, they theorized that aliens came and colonized it. And they created some good creatures and some bad creatures, and they end up fighting for the rights to rule the land. I'm not quite sure. All I know is musically, when this came out that year, I spun this continually like a month in a row. I mean, constantly. Couldn't get enough of it. So I go with that one.
Yeah, I dig it. I'm a fan. I love that band so much.
We see.
It's funny because like they also have another album which is I'm pretty sure technically it's a concept album, Paradise Lost.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean, that's
yes,
really good too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost say the Odyssey too, right? Or was the Odyssey mostly just the long track, right?
It was a long track. I don't know if the whole entire album itself was the entire concept. Yeah. Excellent album though.
They're all good.
Pete, that title track for Paradise Lost is pretty amazing.
Oh, hell yeah.
It is. Mm-hmm.
The melody on that's just...
Oh. Mike Romeo knows how to write a catchy hook.
Yes.
That guy is such a good songwriter. Such a good songwriter. Great choice. Great choice. All right. Hello, Victoria.
Oh.
Gotta go.
Yes.
Metropolis 2, Scenes from a Memory. Mm-hmm. Might even be my favorite out of all. Well, maybe not quite, but it's my favorite Dream Theater album. It's probably my favorite concept album of the last 25 years or so. All about a guy named Nicholas and how he's goes into this hypnotic trance and sees this woman named Victoria and how he sees that she was killed and how the whole story unfolds with all this deja vu and all this kind of stuff. And this album has some of the most intensely insane musical passages I think I've ever heard in my life. I've seen the band perform this live like 3 times. Mm-hmm. It never fails to amaze me just how they can replicate this insane piece of work. But more importantly, it's not all about like all the crazy solos and the complex shredderama going on. There's just some amazing melodies and vocals from James Labrie on this album. And the whole thing just really makes sense. It's just like a perfect piece of music from start to finish. I absolutely love it. And like I said, it's really cool to see them play the whole thing start to finish in concert, with the singers and all this kind of stuff. Really great stuff. Love it, love it, love it. That's my choice for number 2.
Saw them live as well. They were brilliant. They were excellent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great band.
Okay, number 4. All right. Number 4 is probably going on the same type of tangent that I was on beforehand. Number 4 is the last album that Neil Morse did with Spock's Beard, Snow. Too bad they never got to do this live, at least at the time that it was released. I remember seeing Spock's Beard probably a few months after this had came out with Nick DiVirgilio as the lead singer at the time. And they played just a few snippets from this album, and we were all pretty much saddened about that. But if anybody knows anything about this album, this is an album about a gentleman by the name of Snow. But then the lyrical and context of the album all became very much spiritual in regards to what Neil Morse was going through. As right about this time, he became a newborn Christian. And most of the lyrics on here basically take on a Christian theme. And I guess that must have, offset a lot of his band members, and he went on his own way, his own successful way at that. Spock's Beard's Snow is my 4th pick.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it.
I
have to hear my little smile too, just so you know.
My number 4 is going to be the concept of all concept records.
Yes. The greatest.
This album has been scrutinized. It's been beloved. It's been a lot of things. This is a story about Rail, who's a Puerto Rican youth, and he's on a discovery of self-discovery, and he runs into bizarre situations, bizarre creatures like the Slippermen. You can tell this is a Peter Gabriel record because he had total control over it. And I don't think Tony was very happy about that. But finally, Steve's guitar playing is just absolutely gorgeous on this. And as a double record, I don't think there are any wasted tunes on here. It just flows so beautifully from the title track to the last track, on side 4. So when you always think of concepts, we always talk about The Lamb, 1974, Peter Gabriel's last hurrah.
That's right, the granddaddy of them all, right?
Brilliant. Favorite album of all time.
There you go. All right, George, what do you got? Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a great one.
Oh, that's a pretty good one.
Oh, yeah.
This is my favorite prog band last 10 years, easily. I almost went with their first album. I think the concept on this one is better. A guy dreams of his own murder as a child, and then he lives out his life as a paranoid adult that is trying to avoid that so-called eventuality. And it's supposedly based on, loosely at least, on a real thing. Singer Ross Jennings had that dream. So I don't know, it's pretty more interesting than a lot of concept albums to me, and musically it's a home run. I mean, first song to last is incredible the whole way through. So I go with that one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. That's a great band. They're
really
easily one of the best bands of the last like decade and a half, right? Or so is it 10 years they've been around? I'm trying to remember exactly when the first album came out.
2010.
2010.
So, yeah, so it's a decade. Yeah, amazing band. And I love the fact that none of their albums are identical to the one that came before it for the most part. You know, maybe the last two a little bit. But I think that they just keep reinventing themselves, and they're so melodic. They got the chops. They're heavy. They're proggy. It's like great stuff. Great stuff. Good choice. All right. Well, in the spirit of not wanting to duplicate, so I originally was going to talk about this guy, but since Anthony did already, and I knew someone was going to, I'm going to throw this bad boy out here.
Oh, Snow Goose.
All right, the Snow Goose, which is a weird. I mean, it's a concept because but it's all instrumental. So it's basically like this. Camel does this whole classical piece inspired by the Snow Goose with the orchestra, and it's all these short tracks, all make sense and all segue into each other. And it's one of the most beloved albums by this band. Ironically, not my favorite album by Camel, but it's just a lovely listen. And I mean, come on, those keyboards and that Latimer guitar playing on this album, it's just a
magic.
Yeah, it really is. Mm-hmm.
This is like soothing, lovely, and beautiful Camel. And that's why people love it so much. It's a very, very special album. So again, all about the Snow Goose, right? Or so they say.
The second disc on the live album where they do that at the Robert Hall with the symphony is
it's
remarkable.
It's pretty
remarkable.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Chuck, back to you.
All right. Well, my last one for the evening. Basically in comparison to the albums that came, that bookended. This one over here is a loose concept about the loss of innocence during the 30s and 40s of Americana. Ekelund's Cowboys poem Free. When they came up with the concept of this, Raymond said that he actually came up with stories from his father, who was a soldier, if I'm not mistaken, during World War II. And, he spoke about stories of how things were in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s growing up in America. And this one happens to be one of my favorite albums by this great band. And it's probably, like I said, just an album based on the end of innocence within Americana.
Good album. That's another band that has a couple of them. Like I thought about I was like,
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too, and so, but I was like, let me. I'll stick to this one over here.
There you go. I love it. Really good band. All right, Anthony, what do you got?
For my fifth concept, this one is going to be probably not surprising, but Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Whoa.
Another Roger Waters concept, born out of being spit on at a show in Montreal, Canada during the Animals tour. And he had this concept, and he already starting. We were in the pre-stages of the pros and cons of hitchhiking. I remember reading where Roger had brought both of these concepts to David and said, David, which one do you think you could work with? And David chose the wall concept and the instrumentation, the vocal passages. It's an amazing record. It's an amazing double record.
I think if we didn't bring that one up today, we probably would have gotten a lot of hate mail, right?
Yeah,
you can't have a show.
I mean, it's been diagnosed over and over and over, but you can't deny it's that it's a masterpiece, I think, of a concept record.
The band at their best. Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny is they took that album, which, you know, it's a concept album, it's double record, it's big, it's, you know, bombastic at times, it's all sorts of things. They did a movie on it and all that kind of stuff. But the amazing thing is they took that on the road and made it a spectacle.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't get to see that tour, but I've seen plenty of footage and things of, you know, that giant wall and all the characters running around. I mean, it's just like, and let's face it, Roger Waters has continued to do that for, you know, year after year, right? So, I mean, that almost like Operation Mindcrime, like took on a life of its own. Which really sucks is that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway never had that chance, right?
Sadly. Sadly.
And Richard Wright was fired right before they released the record. Then he's hired back on as a sideman, and he's the only one that made money on the tour.
Crazy stuff. We'll go down in history, though, you know. It's one of the greats. All right, George, what do you got?
Heard this one before. You pretty much covered the concept, so I won't go into that. It's just for me, this is the ultimate one. The complete synchronicity between the concept and the music. The concept takes a lot of heat online. So a lot of people, it's derivative of some movie, I believe, but I don't know. To me, you can't do it any better than this. So that's my number one.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you do a concept album. And then you look at the other one they did, The Astonishing, and that's how you not do a concept album.
That was terrible.
You know, and I love that band. I've seen Dream Theater live more than any other band. I love them to death. I love all their albums, but I just can't get into The Astonishing.
Yeah, same here.
I saw them live on that tour, and I was bored to tears. I was really hoping it's like, well, maybe live it'll instill something in me, and for the first time it'll, you know, spur me on to really enjoy this album. And you know, and it was worse. I was like, holy cow. I mean, they didn't talk to the audience there between the songs. It was like an hour and a half of just straight plowing through that album, and there's really nothing catchy about the album. There's even not a lot of like Scenes from Memory has those amazing musical passages, right? That you just like, holy crap, did they just do that, right? Or, you know, those catchy vocals where you're singing along, it's anthemic, and The Astonishing doesn't have any of that. And like James not even once did he talk to the audience. They went from one song into the next, and it was like 3/4 of the way through the show. And I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, you know what? I can catch that early train out of New York City. I leave now. And I'm like, and if I leave now, am I going to regret it? Nope. And I was out of there. I didn't even stay for I think they played like 2 older songs to finish off the evening. And that was it. And I'm like, well, what am I going to miss? I've seen everything they've ever played before. So I was like, oh yeah, I couldn't wait to put that one behind me. So, and then they came out with an album after that was actually really, really good. So they got back in my good graces. All right. Well, I'm very happy nobody picked this one. I'm actually surprised, although Chuck came kind of close, but I got to go with Thick as Brick.
Yes.
I mean, you have to. That the story of Gerald Bostock, right? The little 8-year-old wonder child, as created by the mind of Ian Anderson. Of course, you know, this is, you know, all based on a poem that supposedly the made up Gerald Bostock character had written, and it's got all this newspaper clippings. It's very English. And which of course Jethro Tull always was, but I just love this album to death. And kind of like the Fates Warning pick, it's basically, even though when it came out originally on 2 sides of vinyl, but it's basically a 44-minute long one track, all broken up into little parts. It's heavy in spots, it's rocking, it's very proggy. There's little bits of folk in there. I mean, a lot of Hammond organ, great guitar work from Martin Barr.
Oh, the drumming.
The drumming is off the charts. The flute is great. The acoustic guitar is great. I mean, this is, you know, it's funny. A lot of people, they never know what to kind of classify Jethro Tull as, because they do a little bit of everything very well. But I think most folks wouldn't argue that this is, if you're going to pick any one of their albums, that is a true progressive rock album, especially during this era. This is it. Even though, of course, they dabble with prog all the time. dabble with folk all the time. You know, some of their early 80s stuff is very much, you know, in the prog rock vein, but even, you know, like, you know, Heavy Horses and, you know, that era of stuff, it's got its prog, but it's got a lot of folk. But I think this is their big prog explosion, which of course comes after Aqualung, which also kind of was moving in that direction. But yeah, my favorite concept album of all time.
I think Songs from the Woods pretty close, Pete.
It is, yeah. It's still a lot of folk going on that album.
There's a lot of folk on it, but like Hunting Girl, fantastic tune. That like the opening beginning with Martin Barr and who's the keyboard player? I'm losing my mind here.
John Evans.
John Evans.
Yes, John Evans. Oh,
John Evans
beautiful passages.
Or Mrs. Palmer. We have to call her now, right?
Yes.
Dee Palmer.
Want to be politically
He's a conductor.
Anybody got any honorable mentions you want to throw out or mention or anything like that?
Oh, well, I have an album which wouldn't be considered progressive rock, but it would be considered like progressive soul, progressive punk. I mean, progressive funk. And Parliament's Funkin' Teleki versus the Placebo Syndrome.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Which is an album about consumerism and also technology. So that album right there, it did spawn two hit singles in Flashlight and the title track. But that's an album that's based on, once again, George Clinton's vision of what he felt was consumerism and people going too far into technology. So that album right there by Parliament. That's one album that I picked out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that in a while. That's a good one. Anthony, anything off the top of your head?
No, I only had 5.
George, how about you?
I had Angra, Temple of Shadows. It's more pop rock, but
excellent album. Excellent.
Really good. A couple that I saw come up on lists, I don't think they're concept albums, are Queen 2 and Left Overture.
Left Overture. You know, I thought about both as well. I literally had both of them out, and I was thinking about them, but I couldn't see the concept behind either album.
Yeah, there's a lot of albums that people list as concept albums, and I think, you know, sometimes you know, like 2112 always comes up.
Yes.
The only concept is the long, you know, the 2112 track, right?
Yes.
I mentioned a couple of Symphony X albums earlier that I think also fall into that category. I think Monolith by Kansas sort of is concept because there's a lot of Native American themes running throughout that album, but most people don't classify it as such. I don't know. Yeah.
Selling England by the Pound. What's most consider that? What's a concept album? I don't see the concept, although a lot of the songs do segue together if you do listen to them. Like the Cinema Show, the Isle of Plenty, and Dancing with the Moonlit Night, they all go together. But as a whole, I don't know if the album itself is a actual concept itself. What's another album? Oh, Trick of a Tail, another one. Unless they're talking about 8 Tales, I don't know if that's an actual concept album as well.
The other one of my honorable mentions was going to be, and I just remembered, was Camel Nude. Kind of about, I think it's about the story about Annie Latimer's kind of like dad in World War II, where you got, you know, tunes like Drafted and Captured.
His uncle.
The whole. It's kind of a depressing theme, like a Roger Waters concept would be about, you know, his father in the war too. But I think Camel's New would be is a good concept one also.
How about this one?
Oh yes, I agree.
Alan Parsons Project.
Oh, how could we forget
about the first album too, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, yeah. I had that one. How about this?
Oh
Seventh Son by Iron Maiden.
I almost picked that one.
I had this one picked too, and as soon as I saw George pick it, I threw mine aside. And I think George mentioned this one.
Yes.
Lane from Pain of Salvation. B is another one too. They've got a couple of them.
Yes.
A lot of good concept albums, guys. I think we covered most of the ones that we got to cover. But I'm sure there's going to be people watching who are going to be like, "But you guys forgot this one." So, of course, everybody watching, if there's other concept albums that in the prog and prog metal space that we have not touched on, please feel free to add them into the comments below. We would love to check them out. Anybody, while we got everybody here, 4 of us here, anybody have any like new prog releases or prog metal releases that you want to quickly plug and say something about?
Just that the new reissue Steven Wilson box set Jethro Tull A, featuring my all-time favorite keyboard player Eddie Jobson, comes out April 16th. Buy from Laser's Edge.
I knew you were going to give Eddie a plug. You had to.
I received a copy of the Devil's Staircase from Tim McCaskey. And also Son of Umbra's A Shy Full of Ghosts. Over here, I received those on Saturday, and I've been listening attentively to both albums, and they're both just stunning. I'll probably give a little bit more of a review once I'm like thoroughly through with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just got mine as well, so I see them sitting here. I'm going to throw out, if you guys haven't checked this out yet, the new Transatlantic.
Yes.
This is the double disc. So this is the Absolute Universe, the Forevermore version, which is basically the full version. Think of it as the double album, right, as opposed to the abridged album. I've only listened to it once. There's a lot of stuff on here, but really, really cool. Check that out if you haven't already. And I know I've already done a show on it today. For all you Bebop Deluxe fans, there's a killer new deluxe edition of Axe Victim. Man, Bill Nelson, great guitar work on that album.
Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Jurassic Plastic was released. Re-released yesterday.
Yeah, it just came out. Yeah, I think my copy's on the way. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for mine as well.
Stoked about that, and I'm going to throw this out because you guys are going to get a review of it from me over the next couple of days. The brand new one from Celeste, Italian prog rock legends. Man, if you love Mellotron, woo, check it out.
Like Freddie Mercury.
In Principi del Regno Perduto. Hopefully, I said that correctly. I am Italian, so I did my best there. So. Brand new Todd LaTorre, singer from Queensryche, excellent solo album. That also is new. So I guess that's all I've got. Anybody else?
He plays on the new. He plays on a couple tracks of the new Jason Bieler from Saigon Kicks record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dave Ellison from Megadeth's on that also.
Oh,
it's like a Star of Stars.
I got some. I don't know, George, if you've ever heard of this. So bear with me a second. I'm going through my. Going through my promo stacks here. Also, too, something that you guys should check out. Big Train Empire live album. It's got a CD and Blu-ray. Very cool. But I got this Fusion album here I wanted to mention. And once I get to it, I'll review it. Here we go. It's a band called Time Shift. Time Shift Accident. Anybody ever hear of these guys?
No, doesn't sound familiar.
All instrumental jazz fusion stuff.
That's up my alley. So
it's called. The album is called Chronesthesia. I don't know, whoever the hell they say. New quartet. So it's got Dave Mola from Florence on guitar, Michael Shetter from Relocator X 7 Steps to the Green Door on bass, and jazz fusion veteran Gunter Schmuck on keyboards, and drum talent Paul Etty.
Oh, yes. All right.
Pretty interesting.
All right.
6, 8, 10-minute long songs. Sounds pretty good to me. So all sorts of good stuff, guys. So thanks for checking out our first edition here in the Prog seat. I want to thank Chuck and George and Anthony for joining me on this episode. We had a good time here talking about some concept albums, and put some comments below if there's any kind of theme shows you guys want to see. We're open for all sorts of recommendations, things like that. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course. We're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Chuck and Anthony and George, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks again.
Thanks, Pete. Take care.
Thanks, Pete. Be well, buddy.